If you've been following the story, Norman Osborn, the former Green Goblin, has been cleansed of his sins and is now operating as a hero. He has powers similar to Peter Parker, but uses advanced tech to augment them. His initial attempts at heroism were violent, putting him at odds with other heroes like Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen. Despite trying to quit, a deadly attack pulled him back in. Now, he's hunting the crime lord Tombstone, but things have gone sideways. He's been beaten and humiliated by Tombstone's enforcer, Plague, and now he has to deal with the consequences of his brutal approach to crime fighting. The story opens in a hallway with J. Jonah Jameson. He's walking to his apartment, looking weary. A neighbor greets him, but Jonah is lost in thought. It seems he's wrestling with the truth about the new Spider-Man. He's hearing reports that this new Spidey is violent and a menace, which he finds believable. But the rumor that Peter Parker has cut everyone out of his life is something he can't accept. He reaches his door, only to find it unlocked. Inside, sitting in the dark, is Norman Osborn in his Spider-Man suit, unmasked and battered. It's a tense, quiet start that establishes the desperate state Norman is in. The tension in the room is palpable. Norman is sitting in Jonah's chair, bleeding. He apologizes for the mess and offers to buy Jonah a new chair. Jonah isn't interested in furniture, he wants answers. He asks if Norman has lost his mind again. Norman admits he was hoping Jonah could help him locate Peter Parker. Jonah retorts that finding Peter is at the top of his list too. It's a meeting of two former villains, one a public menace, the other a redeemed monster, trying to find the hero they both hurt in the past. We cut away to the sewers, where we find Phil Urich, the former Goblin King. The narration describes him as a man who used to be a knight and a king, but is now something less. He is running for his life through the sludge. We see that he is being pursued by a high-tech Spider Slayer robot. Phil is terrified, his mind fractured by death and resurrection. He's no longer a threat, he's prey. The scene establishes that someone is hunting down anyone connected to the Goblin legacy with ruthless efficiency. The hunt concludes brutally. The Spider Slayer catches up to Phil Urich. He tries to fight back, but he's overwhelmed. The machine attacks him with precision blades. We see Phil screaming, not in defiance, but in pure terror. The robot brutally dispatches him, leaving his body in the sewer water. A monitor on the robot confirms that Urich has been neutralized and all benchmarks are in the green. The machine then asks, "Who's next?" indicating this is a systematic purge of goblins. The scene shifts to Rand Enterprises. We see Maria Osmani working late. She's looking at her phone, texting someone saved as the boy. She's trying to manage this problem child while dealing with her work. Her employee, Brian, enters wearing a hazmat suit, interrupting her. He's eager to run a trial on a new fungal strain. The dialogue reveals a tense workplace dynamic where she is the boss and he is the entitled subordinate pushing boundaries. She shuts him down, telling him the experiment will happen tomorrow. The argument at the lab continues. Brian is pushy, insisting that since he's in the suit, it's go time. He questions her authority, claiming he's the best biologist there. She counters that talent doesn't make him a good manager. The friction is high. She is trying to maintain control, checking her phone and dealing with personal issues, while Brian is focused solely on his work. She finally dismisses him, telling him he's losing the plot. It's a scene that builds character tension and sets up a future conflict within the lab. We return to Jonah's apartment. Jonah and Norman are having a drink. It's a surreal moment. Two men who have spent years hating each other, now sharing a quiet moment of reflection. Jonah asks if Norman has told Aunt May about Peter's disappearance. Norman admits she doesn't care for him. They discuss the absurdity of their situation. Norman brings up the gilded goblin idea, and they share a dry, cynical laugh about their pasts. They realize they have both hated Peter, and now they both rely on him. They are trying to understand the man beneath the mask, realizing they never really did. The conversation goes deeper. Norman reflects on Peter's naivety and hope. He notes that despite everything they put Peter through, Peter never gave up on the idea that they could be better. Norman questions if they are actually better men for knowing Peter. He admits that when he tried to replace Peter, it was an act of ego and psychosis. Jonah challenges him, asking if he thinks Peter doesn't know what a screw-up Norman is. It's a moment of harsh self-reflection, where Norman acknowledges his obsession and his failures. We cut to the rooftops of the city. The Spider family, Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Silk, and Aranya, are gathered. They are watching Norman's apartment or a location associated with him. They are discussing the recent violent events involving the new Spider-Man. They know someone tried to kill Norman with a Slayer bot. There is a debate about whether they should help him. Miles is conflicted, but the team decides they need to intervene, not necessarily to save Norman, but to keep the peace and stop the violence from escalating. The Spider team is on patrol. They are discussing their surveillance of Norman. They realize that no one spotted them, or so they think. They talk about the moral ambiguity of protecting a former villain. Miles points out that Spider-Man would want them to protect anyone in danger, even Osborn. The group dynamic is shown here, the younger heroes trying to navigate a complex moral landscape without their mentor. They decide to clear the air and confront the situation head-on. We shift back to the villain's perspective. We see a therapy office on the Upper East Side run by Dr. Myrna Saldano. She caters to the elite but hides a dark secret. She is actually Dr. Ashley Kafka, the Queen Goblin. She is listening to a client when she is suddenly attacked. A blade or projectile smashes through her window. She transforms, revealing her goblin armor. She is ready for a fight, but she's caught off guard. The attacker taunts her, telling her the bill has come due. The Queen Goblin is now in a full-blown fight for her life. Her office is being torn apart by high-tech weaponry. The attacker is revealed to be a swarm of spider slayers or similar drones. She uses her goblin gaze, but it's ineffective against machines. The drones mock her, calling her name tragic, and her attacks useless. She tries to fight back with her pumpkin bombs and glider, but she is outmatched by the cold, mechanical precision of the machines. Back at the apartment, Norman and Jonah are still talking. Norman is looking out the window, reflecting on Peter's life. He lists the tragedies Peter has endured, the loss of Gwen, the constant battles, the financial struggles. He notes that Peter has paid a high price for his heroism, yet is viewed by many as a perpetual screw-up. Norman, on the other hand, has made a suit and tried to do good in his own twisted way, and now feels like he's losing his mind. He realizes he finally understands how it feels to be Spider-Man, the burden, the isolation, and the madness of it all. The mood lightens slightly as the two men finish their drinks. They toast to perpetual screw-ups. It's a moment of bonding over their shared failures. Norman thanks Jonah and offers to pay for the chair he ruined. Jonah tells him to keep it for the story, but says he'll charge him for the carpet. Norman prepares to leave, donning his mask again. He admits that he hopes his efforts are enough for Peter, and enough for himself. Jonah agrees. It's a rare moment of vulnerability for both characters. We cut to another target, Ned Leeds. The narration recaps his tragic history, brainwashed, framed, assassinated, and resurrected. He is currently trying to live a normal life, grocery shopping and humming to himself. He believes he has a third chance at happiness. He is suddenly ambushed on the street. A swarm of the same machines that killed Phil Urich descends on him. He is dragged into the darkness, another victim of this anti-goblin crusade. We return to the lab at Rand Enterprises. Brian, the pushy biologist, is sitting in a containment unit or a clean room. He's chewing gum, looking bored and entitled. He's waiting for the experiment to start. Suddenly, the containment unit activates. He realizes something is wrong. The machine locks him in. He tries to get out, but the system overrides. A laser or energy beam activates, and the room begins to glow with dangerous energy. Brian goes from arrogant to terrified in seconds. The experiment goes catastrophically wrong. Brian screams as the energy engulfs him. The containment glass shatters. We see him being bombarded by the fungal strain or energy he was working with. He is slammed against the wall, his body contorting. The computer screens flash failure and containment breach. Brian collapses, clutching his face. On the other hand, we see Norman swinging through the city as the amazing Spider-Man. He is pushing himself through the pain, his injuries from the Tombstone fight still fresh. He reflects on how the city feels different now. The air tastes of present and future danger. He stops on a rooftop, exhausted. He admits he will likely never truly understand what drives Peter Parker, but he knows one thing. He is a little better today than he was yesterday. Suddenly he sees a shadow. He turns, expecting an attack. Norman is looking down at a pile of defeated goblins. We see the bodies of Phil Urich, the Queen Goblin, and Ned Leeds, all battered and broken, piled up like trash. Standing over them is a massive, imposing figure, the original Hobgoblin or a new upgraded version, flanked by the Spider Slayer robots. The issue ends with Norman facing a threat that has systematically dismantled everyone who shares his legacy.